LBC 97.3. Call 0845 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC 973. This is London's biggest conversation with Anthony Davis.
How do you do? Thank you for joining the programme tonight. We're discussing, well, we've had a range of things on the go tonight as Tuesday becomes Wednesday. Look at that. You wouldn't even notice, would you? We were looking at Facebook and David Cameron. The two don't really sit so neatly together. We were also discussing those go-home vans. But something that's been catching my eye recently is this new phenomenon of the electronic cigarette. It's a good way to wean people off tobacco, and I bought one for my brother. That's how I know a little bit about it. Although he doesn't use it, it went straight in the drawer. But other people swear by them, and it is an alternative, I suppose, to the traditional cigarette. And you're going to have to tell me the ins and outs of it in terms of what you inhale and what you get off it. I don't really know, but I recognise that it's not covered by the 2007 ban on cigarette and cigar smoking in public. And what that means, invariably, is that you don't have to go out onto the pavement to actually use it. No, you can stay inside the restaurant or the bar or the pub and smoke to your heart's content. However, a few restaurateurs of, some top London restaurants have said that diners puffing on electronic cigarettes should go outside for their smoke, after seeing a surge in the number of customers using them. Well, Simon Mullins, who's the co-founder of the Salt Yard group of tapas bars, says, I think the ban on smoking indoors in public was a good thing and long overdue when it came into force 5 years ago. Since then, smokers have got used to having to take it outside, and that's where I think e-smokers should take it too. E-cigarettes might be odourless, but, and I'm a smoker, he says, they're certainly off-putting when you've got someone sat at your table next to you puffing away while you're trying to enjoy your meal. Cigarette smokers have had to deal with going outside to smoke, so why therefore can't e-smokers too? Well, I find this absolutely fascinating. I really do. I mean, I think he's completely missed the point. It is vapour that comes out the end of these things. I mean, it is literally just water vapour. There is no passive smoke at all. It is purely water vapour that doesn't even stick around in the atmosphere as long as smoke. It just vanishes almost instantaneously. So are restaurants and restaurateurs missing the point of e-cigarettes? I thought the whole point of this phenomenon, this incredible technology, was to get people off the pavement, where, round London, I mean, in some of the streets in town and some of the bars that are on narrow pavements, people are spilling out onto the roadway and potentially, getting knocked down by cars because they're so keen for a smoke, because there's so many smokers outside. I actually think the e-cigarette is the type of technology that could hopefully one day see everybody smoking an electronic cigarette. There'll be no passive smoking. And in the same way that we're embracing, technology in our pocket with the smartphone, why shouldn't the cigarette be a fabulous, progressive technology as well? And we could do away with the traditional cigarette, with the tar and the toxins and, the making the cigarette companies rich. Why not embrace technology? 0845 6060 973 is the number to call. You can text 84850. Paul's in Harlow. Hi, Paul.
Hi there, how are you doing?
Yeah, all right.
I'm an assistant manager of a restaurant. I've literally just finished work, and we do not allow the electronic cigarettes in our building.
And for why?
Well, the reason being is many people still see a stigma attached to smoking inside the building, whether it's an electronic cigarette or a real cigarette. And the electronic cigarettes look so real, they are so well made, that someone sitting next to them could really not enjoy their evening because they consider them smoking next to them.
So you are endorsing the thoughts of thick people?
Well, unfortunately, we're endorsing business, and business says the customer is always right.
Yeah, come on, Paul. Smoking. I mean, if people haven't worked out the difference between water vapour and cigarette smoke, then they need their heads examined.
I agree, but unfortunately, we can't give an IQ test as they walk in the building.
But you have to. I mean, not a written test, obviously, but you have to educate people, I would have thought. I mean, the whole point of this technology is that people don't have to stand outside anymore. They can sit with their friends and puff away and have conversations and enjoy each other's company. And you know, this is what technology does. It changes things, and you need to be part of that, don't you?
I'd agree we need to change things. Unfortunately, especially working for a bigger company, change takes a very long time.
So are you saying that this decision has been taken by head office, maybe, and it's something that you would personally would not endorse locally if it was up to you?
If it was my business, my personal restaurant, I would allow it.
Because actually, you would do more business by allowing electronic cigarettes at the table, not less.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I mean, it's remarkable, isn't it? I mean, maybe this is corporate power, just kind of getting it wrong, and then they'll make a U-turn. I don't know. I don't want to know the ins and outs of the business, Paul. But this is the whole point of the e-cigarette. And look, I mean, I don't have any connection with them, but I do think that to see my friends have to leave the table and go out for a cigarette, I just think, oh, for goodness sake, this is ridiculous. And I happen to know that there is less nicotine in an e-cigarette, and hopefully people will stop smoking if they start using these things.
That would be the goal in the long term, really. But as you know, working for a big corporation, you are a very small player, and you do as they say to do.
Yeah, I understand. Have you thought to challenge the decision? I mean, have you written to them and said, look, actually you could be missing out on business because of this?
To be honest, it's not an issue that I would worry about with all the other things to worry about within the business.
Yeah.
Whether people go outside for a cigarette or not is very low on the agenda.
Mm. Well, maybe, I mean, this is the thing. I don't think the electronic cigarette yet has got a kind of government endorsement, has it? It's not a licensed product as yet. It's not seen as a medicinal product or anything like that. So do you think your business might change its mind if the government kind of joined in?
I think maybe if the government came in and had their official stand on it and decided whether it was going to be medicinal or allowed, then maybe they would come in line.
It's interesting, isn't it? I think maybe if the government said it's okay to have an e-cigarette indoors, then suddenly maybe restaurateurs, and possibly your firm might realise that actually their kind of blanket decision-making is a little short-sighted. OK, Paul, thank you for the call. I appreciate that. Here's one saying it's not just restaurants that want e-smokers off-site. The beloved fellows at Upminster Station, which is open air, have a sign-up saying not allowed. I wasn't aware they were in the coalition government and have some authority, says Topher in Upminster. What? So you can't even smoke an e-cigarette outdoors in a station? This is hilarious. I mean, it really is. I mean, tell me if I'm being stupid or something. But this is, even if it looks like a cigarette, I mean, wouldn't you want your fellow diners to know that actually it's harmless as a kind of passive instrument? I would have thought that you'd be excited to tell them. Steve's in Edgware. Hi, Steve.
Yeah, hello there. Very interesting about this e-cigarette, isn't it? They're wonderful things, actually. I use them, and it does help me cut down to just a few fags a day. I still do smoke, but, it's really helped me. And you're just getting, as you said, vapour in the air. And if there's been an upsurge in the numbers of people in restaurants smoking them, I mean, they're going to lose a lot of trade if they're going to say, sorry, you can't smoke your e-cigarette in here, because no one will be offended. They can't smell it. And my one, I think most of them, the end glows green and not even red.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even look like a cigarette. And it's big and fat. I mean, it's much bigger than a normal cigarette. My one is anyway.
Well,
I think they all are, actually. They're not supposed to look exactly like a cigarette.
But isn't this an example of how the kind of PC nature of the modern society has kind of taken hold of our senses? And if there are restaurants banning water vapour because it looks like you're smoking, and it's the mere action of looking like you're smoking that people are offended by, then I'm sorry, I just want to leave, Steve. I mean, and I'm not a smoker, and I've never smoked, and I've never smoked an e-cigarette, and I'm not really interested. But I know, and I have friends, and my brother certainly, who smokes too many real cigarettes, and I'd much rather he was smoking the e-cigarette I bought him for Christmas. You know, I don't want people to be dying from cancer, and I would have thought restaurateurs would feel the same.
Well, it's not only cancer, unfortunately. There's a lot of other illnesses that come from smoking, and it's the most insidious habit to kick. And I was told by so many people, oh, it's willpower, down to willpower. Sorry, it isn't. I've been addicted to serious things in my lifetime, and I'm now in my 60s, and I've quit them. And they're much more serious than smoking cigarettes, but nicotine is a very insidious drug. So by giving people a replacement, so they're not taking in all the other toxins and poisons and the tars and all those things that damage your lungs and lead to things like COPD, like a serious irreversible illness, which means you run out of breath very quickly, basically, and you get worse and worse, and unless you can end your life, you're going to end up seriously suffering for a good few months or even years before you die. And as an ex-nurse, I've looked after those people, unfortunately, sadly, and I had to look after them up till their deaths in a geriatric ward, when they used to have geriatric wards. I don't know if they do anymore.
Of course they do, Steve. Let me ask you a question about the cigarette. I mean, how much of a replacement is an electronic cigarette for a real cigarette, from a smoker's perspective?
Well, it's really 100% or 99%, but, I mean, I still like the taste of the tobacco. I smoke roll-ups, and I love the taste of that particular brand of tobacco. So this e-cigarette is very good, because even the taste is like tobacco taste. And there's no tobacco element in it at all, but they put some flavouring of tobacco in, very cleverly, or the one I've got does anyway. So I've even got my cigarette lighter out of my pocket. I've got no fags on me, and I've got my e-cigarette in my mouth, and I've gone to light it.
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's all about the muscle memory, isn't it, and the routine of smoking that is the biggest problem for people, and that's, forms very much the basis of the addiction, and that's why people switch to gum or, to patches, because they're, even just the routine of applying them or chewing it is something else to do with your hands. And I think the genius of the electronic cigarette is you are holding between your fingers something that's the same size and shape of a cigarette, and the mere action of sucking on the blooming thing is making you, it's almost satisfying the muscle memory. Totally, you're absolutely right there, but patches and the chewing gum don't work for most smokers. I mean, I've been a long-term smoker, like probably over 40, definitely over 40 years, foolishly. I wish I'd never started, but that's, it was my foolish actions that led me to do that, and it was peer pressure, etc. But I'm not blaming anyone else, obviously. No, and the best way to give up smoking, best way to give up, Steve, is to never start in the first place. And
goodness me, of course. I'm glad you don't smoke. I really am.
Well, I never have, so it's not a problem for me. But I don't drink either. I mean, admittedly, I have other vices, but they're too boring to mention here. Steve, thank you for the call. All the best. Good luck. OK, more in just a moment. 0845 6060 973. Are restaurants missing the point of the e-cigarette if they're turfing people out onto the pavement to smoke them when it's simply vapour that is blowing out the end? 0845 6060 973. Hey. Back to now, I'm Anthony Davis. We're discussing e-cigarettes in restaurants. Bruce Poole, who's the chief proprietor of the Michelin-starred Chez Bruce in Wandsworth, said he had even considered banning them. He said, we weren't particularly happy about this when it happened for the first time quite recently, because the e-cigarette looked real and even gave off an admittedly odourless vapour. We chose to do nothing, but it caused a few raised eyebrows. Well, the chief and co-owner of Soho Italian Buca di Lupo, sounds nice, doesn't it? Jacob Kennedy, said, professionally, I suppose there is a certain irreverence in smoking an e-cigarette in a location where real cigarettes are forbidden. When someone shows that lack of respect to my establishment, I don't mind in the least. As an Italian imposter, what can I do but smile anytime someone bends the rules a little? However, they're also giving an e-middle finger to their fellow diners. I think this is really interesting. I think the idea that the mere look of an e-cigarette, to some people, to the untrained eye, is a real cigarette. I mean, I just think, let's enjoy that miscommunication. Let's have fun with it. Maybe it might encourage two tables in a restaurant to actually talk to each other. Someone to say, oh, excuse me, would you mind not smoking? Could you take your cigarette outside? And the e-cigarette smoker going, well, I would love to, but this is actually just an e-cigarette. Oh, really? What is that? Oh, well, it just, vapour. Oh, I see. Do you remember that? I mean, years ago, we used to have conversations, we'd talk to each other, we'd engage with each other. My fear is that there are proprietors of restaurants who are banning e-cigarettes because they're frightened that diners on opposing tables might actually communicate with each other. This is terrible news. 0845 6060 973. Are some restaurants missing the point of e-cigarettes? Herbie's in Harrow. Harrow, Herbie.
Hello, no, I'm in Hounslow at the moment.
All right, let's not split hairs.
Anyway, Anthony, my young lady smokes e-cigarettes, and it's lovely not to be cuddling up to an ashtray, and things like that, which I think the cigarettes used to do. And she does smoke in the front room now, whereas when she was smoking, she didn't because of the nicotine. As you say, it's just a vapour. There's no smell, there's no staining of the furniture or the ceilings or the walls with nicotine or anything like that, which is great. She's still very tempted to have a real cigarette, but I keep saying to her, please don't go back on it. It's almost a year now that you've given up, and if you can carry on, all well and good. I'd rather you give up cigarettes and just carry on to it. Although they're very expensive, they're quite an expensive cigarette to buy. In comparison, because they don't last as long as the packet of cigarettes do.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I've seen them in the you can buy disposable ones, can't you? That are good for a week or so. I've seen those in the chemist.
Yeah, you can buy rechargeable ones as well, from what I can gather.
That's right. Well, the one I got for my brother, it actually looked like a rather wonderful present. It wasn't cheap. I mean, it was a fair few quid, but you got the case and you got the charger and you got the spare thingy and you got the the wire and all the little bits and pieces And I actually thought it was a brilliant present for him. He didn't really like it at all, didn't take to it at all. But, that's maybe because of his lack of willingness to give up.
Nicotine. Well, you see, Anthony, what the restaurants need to realise is that there is no danger with them. You're not a passive smoker, because that was always my worry and problem. And the thing is that, a lot of restaurants and certainly pubs lost out because of the smoking ban. And this may be one way of bringing them back, because there's no offence of anybody catching anything from e-cigarettes, surely to God, the vapour. And I think it might bring, as you say, back conversations. Instead of people sitting out there with their dog ends, shrouded around it. The entrance of the restaurant or whatever.
Yeah, but this is the point. I mean, the smoking ban actually, ruined a lot of the social aspect of going out. I really feel that. And I hate having to see, even outside of offices in the daytime, you see people shivering. People have come out in just a blouse, shivering and smoking in the, trying to hide from the wind in the corner of the doorway. And I just think to myself, it's such a shame. I mean, even the smoking room seems to have been disbanded as well. Herbie, thank you for the call. William's in Romford. Hello, William.
Hello, good morning. Just a few things I wanted to set straight from previous callers. They might have their facts a bit mixed up. Now, I've smoked these. I have one in the car that I use every now and then. However, I disagree. They shouldn't be used in restaurants. Now, first of all, they come in a massive variety. Some of them have nicotine. They might be mild, strong, or very strong in nicotine. And they do smell. They do smell. You can get loads of flavours, from Red Bull to vanilla. And now, if I was sitting in a restaurant and the person on the table next to me was smoking one of these, the smoke is incredibly thick, and it will, even though it's only water vapour, it will linger about. And I personally wouldn't want to be smelling it.
I mean, explain to me where the smell comes from. I mean, it's not coming at the end of the thing, is it? Where is the smell?
No. What it is inside the liquid's vegetable glucose. Okay, in all of them, and they can flavour these. They can flavour the liquid inside, so the smoke is flavoured. It's a bit like shisha. I don't know if you ever heard of the Arabic smoking pipe. It's pretty much similar to that, but it's flavoured and it smells. You can smell it from quite far off. Now, if you're sitting in a restaurant and got someone next to me blowing it about, and as I say, the smoke is quite thick and it won't just disappear, it'll hang about.
So, are you suggesting, because, I mean, I haven't seen this, and in fact, I mean, there's a couple of the guys who work here have got them, and I've never smelt anything off them at all. They seem to be completely odourless. I mean, are there certain odourless capsules that you can get for them that don't give off anything?
No, I mean, to be honest with you, the refill ones with the, I mean, they've all got liquid in, but the refill ones with liquid, you can definitely buy little bottles of liquid off of eBay, off of their stores, and there's probably 50 different flavours of all sorts all around. And I think that's the big problem, is that some of them do smell.
Well, good. I mean, let's bring on the smells, William. I mean, this is the point that I'm making. Why are we so obsessed with this sterile environment? I mean, you know, people smell. And this is the problem, isn't it? I can understand not wanting to inhale smoke that, you know, has a potentially harmful effect. But, you know, a smell, even a pleasurable smell from a cigarette, a little strawberry-flavoured vapour, bring it on. I think we just need to toughen up, and if you don't like it, sit somewhere else, is my view. William, thank you. Abdul's in Wembley. Hi, Abdul.
Hi, Andrew. Good morning. Well,
Morning.
Basically, you said about the electric cigarette that in the restaurant, you know, that... but what about when the children are there? They can't tell the difference between an e-cigarette or a normal cigarette.
Yeah, but how are we ever going to get a generation to not want to pick up real cigarettes and smoke e-cigarettes?
Yeah,
my point is that why not have everybody smoking e-cigarettes eventually?
Yeah, no, but that's still an encouragement for a child, isn't it? He ain't going to know the difference, is he, at the end of the day? Still marketing, isn't it?
Well, yeah, no, you're right. Of course, I totally see your point. Of course, I see your point. But my point is that if an e-cigarette is only 1% bad for you, whereas a regular cigarette is 99% bad for you, and people have crutches and addictions and needs, then why not wean an entire generation on the electronic cigarette?
So you still want something to sort of encourage someone to smoke?
Well, people, unfortunately, there's always a fashion, isn't there, whether it's wearing a...
We're talking about children, we're not talking about people, we're not talking about adults.
No, but it's children that are the ones who follow the fashion initially. I mean, children are far more fashionable than adults are.
So if the fashion is not there, they're not going to get encouraged, so why in the restaurant? So tomorrow, if a teacher starts smoking in the school, in the classroom, and just say, sorry, it's an e-cigarette, is that the same?
Well, maybe we should just ban children from restaurants rather than e-cigarettes, Abdul.
Well, we can't do that, because then, you know, that'd be just silly, wouldn't it, at the end of the day?
Well, I think I'd rather. I mean, and aeroplanes as well. I mean, you know, but we could take this, a lot further, because arguably kids smell a hell of a lot worse than cigarettes do.
Yeah, I understand. It's not a matter of smelling, it's a matter of encouragement.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand. You make a very valid point. I'm sorry if I'm joshing you, but I think, you know, this is the point. We can't have it all, can we? And I suppose, you know, in my head, I've been thinking about evenings, and I've been thinking about, you know, people out in the evening when children are not necessarily around, rather than the daytime and families in restaurants.
Yeah, but children do go out at the weekend with the family. They can't just leave them out because of, you know, e-cigarettes or something, can they?
Yeah, well, maybe you just have to leave the kids at home, or, I don't know, put them in kennels or something. I don't know what's available these days. Abdul, thank you for the call. All the very best. Ron says it's become so politically incorrect to blow smoke out of one's mouth that those who take offence will take offence. And this goes for almost everything these days, as the hand-wringers try to make our lives even more miserable than they already are. Elaine in Twickenham says the intelligence of the general public never ceases to amaze me. First smokers become pariahs, then e-smokers. Meanwhile, other diners are drinking a substance so potent that it has ruined lives and torn families apart. And Frankie says, what rubbish! E-cigs do not smell. Well, I thought that was the case. I know that you can get different capsules to taste something different flavours to taste. But as far as I was aware, there was no smell. That's the whole point. That's why these manufacturers are trying to kind of, make a profit, because it's completely different to a real cigarette. I guess that's their, that's their unique selling point. I don't know, I've never smoked one, so I wouldn't know. But if you have, and maybe you can tell us, does the vapour give off the smell? Is there a smell? And should restaurants make a little bit more effort to be supportive of the electronic cigarette movement? Because it's only going to get bigger, isn't it? I mean, and I'm hoping, I'd much rather see people smoking electronic cigarettes than real cigarettes for obvious reasons. But this is just more genius technology making its way into our lives. But will it catch on like the tablet computer? Talking of which,
LBC 97.3. Call 0845 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC 973. This is London's biggest conversation with Anthony Davis.
You've got me till 1 o'clock. Then Ollie Mann sits in for Duncan Barks here on LBC 97.3. Let's continue our conversation on the e-cigarettes tonight. So we've been reacting to those London restaurants that have said diners puffing on electronic cigarettes should go outside for their smoke after seeing a surge in the number of customers using them. And some of London's best restaurants are suggesting that, you should take your business outside. Well, the devices from which users exhale a nicotine vapour, they're not covered by the 2007 ban on cigarette and cigar smoking in public places. Well, LBC 97.3's Lorraine Horgan has been looking into this.
Some top London restaurateurs have said they've had enough of diners puffing on electronic cigarettes, and it's time for them to take their vaping outside. Simon Mullins is co-founder of the Salt Yard Restaurant Group. He's a smoker, but he thinks if cigarette smokers have to deal with going outside to smoke, so should e-smokers.
Customers don't expect to see smoking indoors, and so whilst e-smokers might be in the minority, I would be more concerned about alienating the majority by allowing them to smoke indoors rather than telling those that like to smoke e-cigarettes to take it outside like all the other cigarette smokers.
Angela Harbert is campaigns manager with Forest, freedom organisation for the right to enjoy smoking tobacco. She's strangely understanding when it comes to taking e-cigarettes outdoors.
I think that restaurateurs have the right to make their own policies for each restaurant as they see fit. Some restaurants, for example, insist on wearing a tie. Other restaurants ban or at least discourage small children. I put it in the same category as that. It's up to each individual restaurateur to make his own decision.
She does think that restaurant owners are set to lose out, though.
I think the decision by restaurateurs is wrong-headed. This is a growing consumer revolution. There are some 1.5 million e-cigarette users in the country today, and it's growing by the day, and they're missing out on an opportunity.
So what do Londoners think about the prospect of no more e-cigarette smoking in restaurants?
It should go outside because at the end of the day it's a hygienic thing, and you're eating food and preparing food.
No, I think it's okay. It's not harmful smoke. It's not nice for them to go outside. I'm not a smoker, but...
You've got kids, families, and it's just not a nice thing. And that's why you've got smoking areas for people to do it outside in their own time.
I used to be a smoker, and it just puts me off having someone sit next to me and smoke coming out of their mouth whilst I'm eating.
For restaurant owner Simon Mullins, it's quite simple. It's about respect for other diners.
If people really want to smoke, then they can do so at home. If they're out in a public space, then they have to also respect other members of the public. And by allowing people to e-smoke and then potentially annoy their fellow members of the public, I think that's wrong.
So with no ban in place, it sounds for now like it's going to be down to restaurant owners' discretion. So if you were asked to stop smoking your e-cigarette, would you?
And that's a very good question. I couldn't have put it better myself, Lorraine. Yes, which way is society, you think, going to go with this? I think this is the kind of issue that it could potentially either see the end of e-cigarettes, because the whole point, I would presume, is that you can, defy the smoking ban. That was the whole reason for them in the first place. Or it was, if restaurants don't embrace the e-cigarette, then, what does it mean? You're going to be standing outside on the pavement smoking an e-cigarette? Of course you're not. You'll be outside on the pavement smoking a real cigarette. 0845 6060 973. Alan's in Richmond. Hi, Alan.
Hi. They are being so hypocritical, he says, while he's sitting here puffing on his e-cigarette. For a start, they're picking and choosing what suits them. They're actually illegally discriminating against somebody who's not breaking the law. They're making the excuse that, oh, well, it's a business decision. It's what my customers want. Well, if all their customers wanted to smoke cigarettes, would they turn around and say, well, you can smoke inside? Or if, I don't know, the majority of customers didn't like fat people or ugly people in there, would they ban them? No, they wouldn't, and they couldn't. So I find what they're saying totally out of the question. I mean, I don't want to go home smelling of tobacco, so I don't want to stand outside smoking my e-cigarette with people smoking cigarettes.
It's a very good point, actually, Alan. And
the whole point as well wasn't simply they weren't created to get round the ban. I mean, the reason I did it, I wanted to give up smoking. But this way, I can actually get my nicotine hit. It's nothing to do with getting round a ban. But what I've decided to do, as of today, my small haulage business, from now on, I do not employ people who do not either smoke or vape. End of story. All my drivers either smoke real cigarettes or smoke e-cigarettes. So from now on, as of today, if they can turn around and say they can discriminate against people who smoke or use e-cigarettes, I will discriminate against anybody who does not smoke. And if I actually advertise for any new staff or drivers or whatever, sorry, you don't smoke or use an e-cigarette, You do not work for me. Let them...
Drivers wanted, vehicle provided, must smoke.
Smokers, must smoke. Yeah. I will openly discriminate against non-smokers if that's the game they want to play.
This is such an example, isn't it? And these restaurateurs that are saying, and we heard it earlier from a chap who doesn't run the restaurant, but he certainly admitted as an employee managing a restaurant that, he is being given a directive from head office that e-cigarettes are not allowed in the restaurant. I'm sure the people making the decision have never even seen an e-cigarette.
No, but they're taking pettiness to a new level.
But isn't that where we're at these days, Alan?
I'll tell you what would be really cool, and I really think somebody should get going.
Go on.
You know, like with flash mob?
Yeah.
E-cigarette flash mobbing.
Where?
Wherever they won't let you have an e-cigarette. So any of those open concourses, 200 people in there, and gradually every one of them, it would be like a 1980s gay disco with all the smoke, like with one of those smoke machines. And same as the restaurants, gradually sneak people in there, and suddenly just everybody on every table take out an e-cigarette and start puffing.
But
and literally have the vapour coming out of the damn doors.
If there's no law against smoking an e-cigarette, I don't understand how restaurants can enforce it. I mean, I appreciate you might argue that it's private property, but at the same time, I don't know what the Human Rights Act would say, and I don't really want to go there because that's a bit of an extreme case also. But I recognise that, if you were to say no, if a restaurant said, I'm sorry, you can't smoke that in here, and you say, well, I'm going to smoke it here because, what does the law say? Call the police. I mean, what situation would diners face if they presented that argument?
Well, I mean, sadly, they can't just put every single thing they want to say no against down to an individual private property's discretion. Because otherwise you will get people discriminated against on perfectly acceptable grounds. And to be honest, if there's nothing in the law that says you cannot smoke or puff on an e-cigarette in public property, then somebody is going to be petty enough to actually take them to court over it for discrimination. And it's just sad when it gets to that point when we're actually stopping people from putting harmful things into their body, and they're being told to go outside and basically get ill through passive smoking next to somebody who's puffing on a cigarette.
Or even,
that's what they're asking us to do.
Or even drinking 20 pints of lager, which is entirely legal. You know, that's the sad part of this, isn't it? You know, the same establishments are probably, you know, flogging the booze to get it down the patrons' necks without a conscience at all. Alan, thank you very much for the call. Mary in Greenford says, Ant, as a smoker, I'm totally confused why these people smoking inside e-cigarettes or otherwise. There has been a ban for some years now, and we are used to going outside by now, so why do it? Why do it, says Mary. Oh, Mary. You've missed the point. This is an electronic cigarette. There is no smoke. This is the new technology that allows you to smoke a device that is exempt from the 2007 smoking ban. So why would you go outside if it's exempt from the law? Peter in Hampshire says, I've smoked e-cigs for 3 years. There's potentially more harm from an exhaled breath to another person than from e-cig vapour. Will they ban breathing next? So what you're saying, a regular person's exhale, even without a cigarette, is more dangerous to somebody because there might be a germ on the breath, there might be bacteria in the breath, you might catch tuberculosis from somebody. Here's one saying, I work for a brewery and they've banned e-cigarettes, as have most of the others. Oh, I see, what, like the big breweries that own the pubs. Why have they banned e-cigarettes? It just doesn't make sense to me. Just don't get it. Don't get it. Hi, David.
Hi, Anthony. Man, brilliant. I think you're brilliant.
Oh,
but...
Bless you, but...
the direction's got to change.
Go on.
Now, that last caller, you know, saying, oh, flash mobs and all that in bars, isn't surely e-cigarette smoking is surely promoting to the younger generation that it is acceptable to do this. And it's going to create, like, a sort of bent attempt to try the real things, and it's going to make it look cool again and all that. I'm just thinking, like, these e-cigarettes as well, they're quite sort of technology advanced. I mean, my mum, she's smoked all her life, and she's 58, and I got her one about 6 months ago. And it ran out within 2 or 3 days, but because it's got a USB connector and all that sort of scenario, she hasn't got a computer, she can't plug it in. So now she just smokes the normal cigarettes again.
Well, of course you can plug USB into the wall, David. Just buy her an adapter.
Well, yeah, but okay. So you've got to go out and spend another £10 or £15 on a charger, you know, and then you've got to refill these things. But I'm just getting back to the point that I wonder if that last caller had any kids or anything, because obviously, surely the point of smoking an e-cigarette is to duplicate that sort of scenario, as if it were. And if you want to do that, then you should go outside and you know, experience it as you would be.
Yeah, but hang on a second.
It's a good thing.
Smoking, to all intents and purposes, on the street is cool. People think of it as cool. They've never been able to do away with that cool thing. James Dean with a fag in his mouth, that whole kind of popular cultural image of it. But that will never change, David. I'm sure of it. And
you're going to move it back indoors, though, aren't you? You know, and even like with families and that. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I had them stick cigarettes as sweets.
Yeah, me too.
Do you remember them?
Yeah.
And they were disgusting.
They tasted grim. Yeah, it was just sugar, wasn't it?
Yeah, pasty and all that. But you know, now it's like creating children, like with their families and that, when they go out. And like a little toddler and that, because it's like harmless in the eyes of scientific, you know, the scientific world, you know, they're going to be giving children, come on, you can have a go at that, have a go, rather than giving them a stick sweet, like what we used to get.
But is it any different to mums giving their children coffee in Starbucks? I mean, I see that all the time, you know, mums weaning their kids on...
That's just being a bad mum, isn't it?
Well, yeah, quite possibly. But you could argue that to have an electronic... The only reason I'm excited about electronic cigarettes is because I think it's the first thing that might actually get people off of cigarettes. See what I mean? Nothing has worked. The signage on the packaging hasn't worked. The government campaigns haven't worked. People are smoking as much as ever before. There's a massive black market on cigarettes now around my way. Pretty much every newsagent sells cigarettes under the counter at like 3 or 4 quid off. I mean, this hasn't worked.
Years ago, racing drivers were promoting cigarettes and all that, as an acceptable thing. And I just think it's the modern era of, now we've got the e-cigarette. It's like back in the day, we had cars that run on, steam.
Yeah, but
now,
it's about the health effects, isn't it? I mean, more than anything else.
But then it's 1% of 100% of a real cigarette, so that's still a percent that is not good in, say, 50 years' time, because we're going to be advanced at a race.
Mm.
And I'm just thinking it's another cycle of the tobacco industries, And I just think, it's not good for the children.
No, of course I agree with that. Of course I do. But I still recognise that nothing has worked. There are as many kids smoking now as ever before. And
but you're never going to get rid of it. Yeah.
No, but, I mean, if you can get them smoking an electronic cigarette, then they're not going to get lung cancer, are they?
But who knows what's going to happen with these e-cigarettes in another 10 or 20 years' time. Like I say, 40, 30 years ago...
Well, the technology should get better. I mean, the technology should mean that we can get all the nicotine out completely, and you still get the buzz, and you still get the hit, and you still get the taste, but they get it all out. And in the same way that they've managed to get all of the fat out of a yoghurt. Well, apart from 1%, of course. David, thank you for the call. More in just a moment. 0845 6060 973. Have some restaurants missed the point of e-cigarette? I'm Anthony Davis. I'm all yours till then and every Sunday to Thursday night here on LBC 97.3. You can download the podcast at your convenience from lbc.co.uk. And don't forget, if you're on Twitter and you haven't followed us yet, then, what are you waiting for? At LBC 973. And for me directly, at the Anthony Davis. If you haven't seen the photograph of the bread basket that I tweeted earlier, then you is missing out. Straight back to your calls on the subject of e-cigarettes, as some restaurants have said diners puffing on them should go outside for their smoke after seeing a surge in the number of customers using them. But are restaurants missing the point of e-cigarettes? Peter in Bow says they were not introduced to beat the ban, they were introduced to help people to cut down. We don't want to make it really easy for people to continue smoking the e-cigarettes. Most people want to cut down and not keep going. Steve's in Slade Green. Hi, Steve.
Hello, Anthony. Yeah, I've been waiting half an hour to speak to you. This is absolutely outrageous. I've smoked for 40-odd years. I've got an e-cigarette. I don't smoke cigarettes at all now.
Right.
They don't smell, and it is discrimination, and I think that any restaurant that does it, quite honestly, should, when they put up for their new licence, people should put go into the courts and put a objection through for them getting a new licence. And it is absolutely disgusting. It is discrimination of the highest order. And they're not harmful to other people. When you had someone, they don't smell, and you had a fella ring up and saying that he's smoking. It's not smoke, and like you said, your brother's got one. It's just vapour. It disappears. It doesn't travel any more than about 2 feet from your body, and it's disappeared. And regarding that other fellow who just rang up about encouraging smoking, the reason smoking has always been popular is because it's always been seen as something cool and not antisocial, that's not the word, but cool, and and to do it as a peer thing. And if these things are broadcast, like you say, I think it's probably the best thing since Einstein's theory of relativity that will stop youngsters smoking, because it won't make it cool, it'll make it uncool. Because it's just ridiculous. And I think anybody that is refused, I certainly, if I went into a restaurant and I wanted to use mine, I don't actually use mine, but if I was refused, I would sue the restaurant. And the other thing I'd like to say is when you go on aircrafts now, they tell you can't use them, but they sell their own brands. But if anyone's listening, if you have got one, go in the toilets and use it, because it don't set the smoke alarms off.
All right, well, let's not go giving bad advice, Steve, but I take the point that you make, and the point is that you can't, I mean, look, if I didn't know aircrafts were selling e-cigarettes these days. I mean, I don't...
Well, they don't sell e-cigarettes, but they sell their own kind of brand.
I see. They sell real cigarettes, duty-free, you mean? I mean, I don't see how, in the aviation industry, something I'm very interested in, I don't understand how, people can complain, or airlines complain about air rage, and yet sell alcohol. I mean, I wouldn't even sell alcohol at altitude. I think it's very damaging for people, even in miniature bottles, but there it is. Okay, Steve, thank you. Here's a message that says maybe there could be an e-smoking area in restaurants. That way, those that disapprove of an e-cigarette or have children may be influenced can sit elsewhere. Well, yeah, that's a good point, actually, isn't it? Maybe they could have a few tables over there for E, but, I mean, it's hard to get a seat in a restaurant anyway. There's a queue to use the fake smoking area. Liam in Kent says, it's funny you're talking about e-cigarettes. I've made the transition to them as of 2 p.m. yesterday. I can safely say I will never need to smoke tobacco again. They are significantly cheaper and allow smokers to avoid the difficulties of quitting. It is good all round, and the only problem is ignorance of non-smokers. It's not smoke in any case. It's water vapour, and it's 100% harmless. I'd be interested if someone could tell me what the nicotine effect was on your body. Because obviously you're getting a hit of something, and I know it's a small percentage, but, I mean, how does it compare to a real cigarette? Because my brother, as I say, he couldn't take to it. I mean, he didn't really try, admittedly. He's not one of those who has got much in the way of, staying power for these things. And maybe, maybe he likes to smoke because it's cool. I mean, he's much cooler than me, he's younger than me as well, better looking than me. And this is the thing, isn't it? The fashion for cigarettes will never change. And certainly any effort by government to change that hasn't worked. Even that fabulous advert where the cigarette becomes a tumour, oozing and pulsating out the end of the fag. That in itself, I would have thought would stop a generation from smoking. That made a jot of difference. Hi, Tony. Tony, you're on. Tony. Oh, he's listening to us, but he's not with us. Pamela's in Wimbledon. Hello, Pamela.
Oh, hello, Anthony. How are you?
Good, thank you. What's on your mind?
How's Peanut?
Yes, fine, thank you.
Good. No, I was just listening to what you were talking about. I mean, I smoke occasionally, and I was just thinking why people would be annoyed, and I kind of do understand it, although I understand why people who have taken to it the e-cigarette and think, well, it's not harmful, which, it isn't, because it's just water vapour. However, I was just thinking of an example why people might sort of understand why it is annoying. If you was in a restaurant and you're having a meal and I pulled out a whiskey bottle and I started drinking from it, and then the waiter comes over to me and says, sorry, madam, you need to buy the drink here, you can't do that. And I say, oh, no, there's water in here. I'm drinking mineral water. It looks like whiskey, but it's mineral water. It's the same principle. It looks like a cigarette. It's just water, but the reality is it makes people think you're smoking. So it's not that it's not harmful. It's the same kind of principle.
Yeah.
If I go into a bank and I've got a toy gun...
But you're not smoking, though, Pamela.
No, I'm drinking mineral water, just like the cigarette. But still, it's still offensive to people maybe sitting in a restaurant with their wife and girlfriend or children, and I've got this whiskey bottle. It looks like whiskey, but it's water. It's just exactly the same. I mean, I don't care. People do. I'm just saying that's an example.
Yeah, but I'm not convinced that people are offended as easily as you say, and I think that we need to challenge people
that get...
Well, yeah, like I said at the very beginning, I think that people who don't know what an electronic cigarette need to learn it, and otherwise you could just say, well, you're uneducated or you don't know what's going on in the world. I mean, the world has changed, and people need to move with it.
I agree, because as you said, it leaves people not smoking, but I still think, even if they got the knowledge that, it's just water vapour, they're still thinking, I'm sitting here and that person's looking like they're smoking, as I would if I was drinking from a whiskey bottle and it was water in there and everyone was happy with that. It's still showing that you're smoking, and that, I think, is what people have a problem with. It's almost like, like I said, if you went into a bank and you went, well, here's a toy gun, but it's not a real one, and you're holding them up, people around are thinking, it's a real one. Then you go, no, it wasn't, it was just a toy.
Yeah, so you're just saying it's socially unacceptable to do something like even the action of smoking, even when you ain't. But the point I'm making is, you ain't. And that's why it really should be embraced. Finally, a message from Janet saying, surely smoking indoors was a health issue. E-cigarettes eradicate this, so they should be able to smoke e-cigs indoors without others being harmed. Am I wrong? No, of course you're not wrong. I'm Anthony Davis. I'm back tonight at 10 here on LBC 97.3. Here's Ollie Mann.